Look at this place. What a mess, right? Oh yeah. And this is what happens when you take your bike for the MOT, but you're gonna come back on the back of a pickup truck. Yeah, we have a problem. So you're asking what happened? Well, I took the bike for the MOT. As you know, the bike has been running great. Got to the MOT place, no problem. He went through the MOT with flying colors. The only advisory was the front tires running low, but I knew that anyway, so I booked a new tire with the guys. I ordered a new tire, the front tire. I paid for the MOT, no test and everything, all happy. I'm getting outside the station, MOT station, getting the bike, and it wouldn't start. Yeah, it wouldn't start. Luckily, the guys were busy at the MOT station, but they were kind enough to lend me some tools so I can just do basic checks. I checked for petrol, it was getting petrol, no problem there. The next thing I took out was a spark plug, and I had no spark on front and on the rear cylinder. So I couldn't do any more, troubleshooting there on the car park. Took in the back of my pickup truck and brought it home, and here we are. Now, because there was no spark on both cylinders, front and rear, both of the spark plugs were not happy. And there was not a weak spark, there was no spark at all. And that kind of told me that the problem is not going to be with a spark plug itself or with a ignition coil, one or the other, or with the HT lead or the boot cap, whatever. That's not going to be the problem. The problem is going to be somewhere else, most probably the TCI box, or probably the coil pickup, ignition coil pickup, or somewhere down the line in the electrics when it's getting in. I knew this much. It took me a couple of days to diagnose it exactly, but I'll take you through it, and maybe hopefully this video will help you or somebody else, if you got that bike or one of the older bikes, to diagnose this problem. Where I did fail over here, as I mentioned, diagnosing that problem, finding that electrical problem, it took me most part of 2 days. And why that long? Well, because I was a typical man about it. I don't need a manual, I know what I'm doing, I can do it without a manual. Who gives a fuck, right? Well, wrong. Although I knew more or less what I'm looking for, the manual is got a very, very schematic, simple 6 tests that you need to run in case there was weak spark or no spark at all. And I'm talking about the Yamaha Virago XV535. Refer to the 6 tests over here. It will take you step by step what you're supposed to be doing. And I like the last one over here. If you still on the very last moment of that manual, if you're still having a problem, you missed something, repeat from stages 1 to 6. So that's very reassuring. There can't be anything else. 6 tests and you will have a spark eventually. So I should have started with that. If I've started with the manual, I would probably have done the whole thing in about half an hour. But let's do it together again. Test number 1, it's performing troubleshooting options, very simple things like your kill switch is not on or engaged or malfunctioning, the ignition is working, the side stand switch is not interfering with anything else, you've got petrol. Very simple steps like this that can contribute to the malfunction of the whole electrical system. I obviously went through all that and everything should be correct. So moving on to test 2. Test 2 is performing the ignition spark as described in chapter 2. So basically what test 2 tells you to do, just get a spark plug, put it in the boot, everything is connected and grounded to the casing, the engine casing, and hit that starter button. And upon cranking you should see a spark happening here on the end of the spark plug. If it's not happening on 1 or 2 cylinders, then you got a problem and you need to perform test number 3. Obviously at this stage, if you see a weak spark, the chances are your spark plug had it, so you need to replace the spark plug because it's faulted. I didn't have any spark whatsoever, and I tried with a brand new spark plug. Well, not brand new. Luckily I've got a Virago over there, another bike. That's an XV500, as you know, the one I've built. It's slightly different frame, slightly different engine, but all in all it's the American cousin of this Virago. We know components and electrical parts are near enough the same. The wiring loom, it's pretty much the same. Cables are slightly longer, slightly shorter because they're located in different parts of a bike, but you can replace parts from it, you know, take, you know, and borrow, and because the engine and the electrical system is virtually near enough the same. So I was lucky enough, I had another bike which is pretty much, you know, I know it's good working condition bike, pretty much the same thing. I could swap things over, borrow parts and troubleshoot it this way, eliminate the problem. Anything I took off that bike, it still didn't work on the bike with a problem, so the problem was further down the line. Moving on to test number 3, as the manual states, we need to measure the ignition coil's primary and secondary resistance as described in this chapter. Let me show you how I've done this. Right, for test number 3, which is the ignition coil resistance, primary and secondary, you need one of these. And if you don't know how to use it, well, don't worry, I don't know how to use it, yet I'm using it. It's very overwhelming looking at this. I mean, they come in different shapes and sizes and different knobs and whatever. There's many options here, but I use three settings here. I use to test resistance, I use it to test volts, and I used continuity test just to make sure you got connection from one side to another. The little beep test, you know, when you got connection it beeps. Great little tool. So don't worry, you know, I'm using it, and if I'm using it, you'll be able to use it as well. If you follow the manual, it tells you everything, even where to stick the probes on for the secondary and the primary testing. Just makes everything so easy and takes the guesswork out of the equation. And even, you know, you got the table over here that tells you what the range is supposed to be. If they outside of that range, then you got a problem in this part. But let me show you on the bike how it works. The Virago, the coils, ignition coils, live right over there. And to test the primary resistance, I set my little multimeter to ohms. I stick it to the connector one end, this to the connector on the other end, and I'm gonna tell you what readings I'm getting from it. There we go, and that reads and stays at 4.2 ohms, 4.1. It drops a little bit, but it stays about this range. And I know for a fact the second ignition coil does the same thing because I've tested it. And if we check the electrical specification table, the primary ignition coil should read between 3.8 to 4.6 ohms. I'm reading 4.1 or 4.2, so I'm well within the range. In fact, pretty much bang on in the middle. For the secondary coil resistance, I've got the coil of the bike over here, and it's also a very simple test. And again, manual tells you where to stick your probes. So you stick one end of a probe to the connector, or the connector to the bike, it doesn't matter which one, and the second one you stick it directly in the spark plug boot itself over there, so you can read what it does. Set my ohms to thousands, and it's reading 14.3, well 33, but it's staying at 14.3. Is it good? Well, let's check it out. Secondary coil should read between 10.6 and 15.8. I'm on 14.4. Again, good results, well within a spec. This is a good coil. Moving on. Moving on down the chart to test number 4. Yamaha tells me to measure the pickup coil resistance as described in this chapter. Let's have it done. Now the pickup coil on this model lives over here on your left hand side engine cover. To get to it, obviously to replace it, you need to remove that, but to get to it there's a cable running over there. In this model is this one, it's 2 cables. You can test it from this connector, or where it connects directly to the TCI unit from this connector over here. Whichever way you want to test it, it doesn't matter, probably both. Let's have it done. So I got my cable from the pickup coil, ignition pickup coil, stripped down already here, sticking my probes in here, and we are sitting at 207, 206 ohms. Let me show you that so you believe me. No, it fluctuates now because I released some tension on the cables, but it's sitting about 207 ohms. And according to the table, the pickup coil resistance should be between 140 and 170 ohms. So that's too much resistance over there, and I think that's what the problem is. It's right there. Yeah, I'm sitting at 170 is the top. I think I found my problem. The pickup coil, it sits outside the range, and doesn't matter, I can measure it from the connector or measure it from a TCI box. It is the same. Sometimes it can be just a little bit of dirt on the connections, and they can be corroded. You need to give them a good clean and it's going to work. Making sure obviously the battery is fully charged, that is also a very good idea, but I'm guessing that's the problem and that part needs replacing. Obviously 207 ohms and the top range is 170 recommended. It's not a massive difference, it's not a huge difference. Can this be causing the main problem, no spark at all? Well, to determine that, we can always perform the last test that Yamaha recommends, and the last test over here is the TCI unit itself. There is no easy way of testing that. Probably Yamaha has got some specific tools they can plug it into, and the computer will tell them whether the unit is working or not. Luckily for me, I've got another Virago over here. Look, I'm surrounded by two Viragos. One is my coffee racer and one is the 535 over here. Well, anyway, I've got a TCI unit from the other Virago, which is exactly the same identical unit. And I know this one is working because it works on this bike. So I'm plugging into this bike over here, and it's still not working. That proves to me that my TCI unit is working absolutely fine. I'm sure if I plug it into this bike, it'll be working. So handy, have two bikes, near enough the same. I can swap the parts over, eliminate the process. And that confirms to me that the problem is with the ignition pickup coil, and that will need replacing. By the way, big shout out to Malcolm. Malk, you've been on the phone helping me out when you find out, I had a problem. Mate, thank you very much, your help was appreciated, because I was pulling my hair for 2 days trying to diagnose and find a fault. Fixing the fault electrical problem is usually very simple. Finding it's another level. It took me 2 days, on and off, but what I really needed to do is print off a dozen pages from the manual, from the Yamaha manual, and if I've done it in the first place, as I should have done, I would probably have done it in 45 minutes, the whole troubleshooting, and I would narrow the fault down, because it's simple as that. Anybody can follow this. I just decided to be a man. The good thing about the Virago is the spare parts, second-hand spare parts are widely available, because it's such a popular bike. It's so many models out there. And it's been produced for I don't know how many, but many years by Yamaha. So I've managed to pick up the part I needed. It's already fitted in the bike. Let's have a look how it performs. Ignition on. Make sure the kill switch is on. Apply some choke. Start the button. Voila! Well, there we go, guys. I guess good thing is it happened while I still on the bike. I went to the MOT, and passed the MOT with flying colors, no advisories, apart from that front tire. And then it died on me, and a good thing it died on me and not when I sold the bike. I mean, imagine selling the bike to a new owner and it dies on him somewhere, that would be extremely embarrassing, and I would not like to put anybody in that position. Completely uncool. But she's up and running now. Another job well done. Cheers. Oh yeah.